All right, hi everybody. This is Gordon, and I'm going to walk you guys through intervals in 5 minutes or less. We got like 20 pages in our book, but I can pretty much boil those 20 pages of work down into a 5 minute explanation. So, intervals. Now, all of you have been working on your key signatures because you promised me you would. You've been practicing your key signatures at home. And we remember that key signatures basically just come back to our circle of fifths. To figure out our key signatures, we can go 5 this way, 4 this way. C major has 0 sharps and flats, and G major has 1 sharp, D major has 2 sharps, etc. F major has 1 flat, B flat major has 2 flats, and inside the circle we have our minor keys. So, in order to explain this properly in the easiest way, we're going to talk about C major because it has no sharps and no flats. Now, what do we call intervals? There's basically 4 different kinds. The 2 main ones that we have are major and minor. So a major would be if we have a C, and let's say we're talking about a major third. We just go a third up, 1, 2, 3, and because there's no sharps and no flats, this is going to be a correct major third. So like this, major third. All right, and if we want to go, so a major is basically if you use the correct key signature and you do a third or a sixth or a seventh or a second, then basically what you have is the major. So if you don't add anything besides what's in the key signature already, you get a major. So major is kind of like home base or a neutral position. If we go and we lower the top note by 1 semitone, then we go to a minor. So major goes down to minor. In our first interval, we had a C to an E, so that's this one here. And to make it into a minor interval, we just lowered it 1 semitone from a C to an E flat. Major is 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, and minor is 1, 2, 3 steps. Okay? So that's the difference between major and minor. There are 2 most common intervals, but there's more because we can also go up a step from major. And if we do, we go to what is called augmented. Augmented. So if we go up from major, we would get augmented. So that means we would go this way. So this is minor third. To go to an augmented third, we would just raise this note from the E to the E sharp. Now this is slightly bigger. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. So this is an augmented third. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 4 steps. A minor, 1, 2, 3, is only 3 steps. It's lower, it's smaller, and an augmented is 5 steps. So we've gone from major, which is home base, we can go down 1 step or 1 semitone to E flat, or we can go up 1 step to E sharp to make it augmented. And there's even more. We can actually go further down from minor. We can go to what is called diminished. Diminished. So below minor is diminished. So if this is a minor, then a diminished is even 1 step further. So here is our major. There's our minor. And to go to diminished, we add a second flat. So here's where double flats and double sharps come in, and we talked about those last class. So now, a diminished is actually only 2 steps. 2 steps. So diminished is the smallest, and then minor, and then major, and then augmented. So C to E double flat is diminished. C to E flat is minor. C to E is major. C to E sharp is augmented. Now, majors and minors are basically all about our second, third, sixth, and seventh. So these are the intervals that can be major or minor. But we've also got our first, fourth, fifth, and eighth, or octave. And whenever we deal with these intervals, we actually call them perfect. So a perfect fourth, a perfect fifth, a perfect unison, that's the same as perfect first, perfect unison, or perfect octave. And the great thing about perfect intervals is there's only one direction up and down. There's no minor when you're dealing with a perfect. So let me show you what I mean. Let's do a perfect fifth. So here's a perfect fifth. For all intents and purposes, a perfect fifth is the same as major. It's kind of like if you just follow the key signature of C major, which is no sharps and no flats, a C and a G will be the correct notes in C major, and because it's a fifth, we call it a perfect, but it's kind of the same thing as a major. It's sort of like home base. Now, if we go one step lower on a fifth, if we go down one, we go directly to diminished. There's no minor with a first, fourth, fifth, or eighth. Perfect intervals don't have a minor, okay? So this would be a diminished fifth. Oh, and this was a diminished third. And if we go one step up from perfect, we go to augmented. So that would be a sharp, an augmented fifth. So essentially, with a major interval that's on a second, third, sixth, or seventh, so major second, major third, major sixth, or major seventh, we can go up one step to make it slightly bigger, and that's augmented, and we can go down one step to minor and down a second step to diminished. With perfect intervals, 1, 4, 5, or 8, it's one step up to augmented and one step down to diminished, and there's no minor interval. So, with that being said, let's look at how an interval works when there's a key signature. So let's go ahead and erase everything here. Let's take, for example, the key of D major. Now, D major has 2 sharps, and the 2 sharps are Father and Charles, because Father, Charles, goes down and ends battle. Father Charles goes down and ends battle. That's the order of our sharps, and this way is the order of our flats. So if we have 2 sharps in D major, it's going to be F and C. So let's just write in some of these intervals. So let's start with a first. Perfect unison is going to be D to D. Let's go for a major second. In fact, I think I'm going to run out of space. So let's start here. Perfect unison. Let's go for a second. this is a major second because in D major, we have F and C. That's just an E. E isn't a sharp, so that's a major second. If we want to make it into a minor second, all we do is lower. Oh, I should stick. This is how I write major sometimes, but let's say major second. To make it a minor second, all we do is go from D and E. Here's our major second. We just lower it 1/2 step, D to E flat. That's a minor second. So we made it slightly smaller. D to E flat is minor. To make it diminished, we go 1 step lower. Diminished second. The weird thing about this is that you're actually going from this note to this note. So I don't know how practical this is or if this would ever happen in the real world because E double flat is 1, 2 is a D. So this one's kind of weird. Now, if we wanted to go to an augmented second, all we would do is raise this. Second note here, D to E sharp. Now we've gone from E, which is the major, and up 1 to augmented. Augmented second. Let's check out a third. So here's where it gets interesting. This note here is an F. In the key of D major, we have 2 sharps. Those 2 sharps are F and C, and this is an F. So D major has to have an F sharp in it in order for it to be in a neutral place or in major. So adding a sharp makes this a regular major third, because we have to have the sharp in D major or it will sound minor. And there I am again using a different form of abbreviation. So there's a major third. So we have D to F sharp. That's our major. To make it into a minor, we have to go 1 step below this, which would be F natural. The natural means we're no longer a sharp, we're bringing it down. Because there's a bar line here, we don't technically have to have the natural. I'm just putting it there to show you that we're lowering this sharp. That makes this a minor third. We went from D major, which is this interval, to D minor, which is down a step from here to here. Now if we wanted to go to a diminished third, we would go from D to F, and we would lower it 1 more. 1 below F natural is F flat. So F flat makes a diminished third. And if we wanted to go to an augmented, you start with major. So here's our major. But if we're going to D sharp and we need to go higher than a sharp, then we need to use our double sharp. And our double sharp is an X. So here's a double flat, here's a double sharp. Here's a regular sharp, there's a regular flat, and there's a natural. So this is the direction that we go. We started a natural, we go up to sharp, up to double sharp, started a natural, go down to flat, and down to double flat. So that's up to our third. Now, let's go into our fourth. And our fourth is going to be a perfect. So let's start with D, and we go up to G. So I always do this. Okay, so is this a perfect? Well, let's see. D to G. Is G in my key signature? So we're looking at D major. D major has 2 sharps. That's F and C sharp. So no, this doesn't have to be a sharp. So just as this is a perfect fourth. Now, because there's no minor with perfect intervals, we go down 1 to diminished and up 1 to augmented. So let's do diminished fourth first. We just have to go 1 step lower. So that's going to be G goes down to G flat. And to make augmented, we go 1 step higher, which is going to be a sharp. So D to G, this is a perfect fourth. If we go down 1, that's diminished. If we go up 1, that's augmented. And this basically works all the way through. So if we go and do a fifth, we look, D major has 2 sharps, F and C. This note here is A. A is not in our key signature, so leaving it just the way it is means that it's a perfect fifth. To make it a diminished, we lower it. And to make it an augmented, we raise it. So now if we go to a sixths aren't perfect. A sixth is going to be major and minor. So let's look at this note. We're in D major. It has 2 sharps. This note here is B. Sharps are F and C. B is not in the key signature. So if we leave it the way it is, this is a major sixth. So to turn it to a minor sixth, we lower it. So that's a minor sixth. To turn it into a diminished sixth, we double flat it. So now it's a diminished sixth. And to turn it into an augmented sixth, all we do is raise it. Major, up 1 is augmented. Major, down 1 is minor. Down 2 is diminished. So now, if we go to a seventh is right here. This note is a C. We're in D major. D major has 2 sharps, F and C. This note is C, so we know that in order for this to be a major seventh, we have to put in the sharp, because that's its key signature. So if that's a major seventh, a minor seventh, we would have to lower our sharp to a natural. So now this is a minor seventh. And then of course, if we wanted to go from minor to diminished, we would instead add a flat, because natural goes down to flat. So D to C flat would be diminished, and D to C double sharp would be augmented. So that's how it works when you have a key that is basically got a few sharps or a few flats. Maybe let's leave it at that for now.